Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. All right, I've had too much tension in the last couple of weeks. I promised myself that I'm going to do something alone this week because I hadn't done that in a long time. And then I remembered this week marks an important anniversary of a time that I did spend some alone time. What had happened was 9 years ago, March of 2016, I was getting ready for a Computer Olympiad conference. And one day I was really late. I was dating a girl many years younger than me. I was really late getting to her home. She was living with her parents. And when I got there, she accused me of cheating on her. And I explained that I was cheating on her, but with a computer game. And that upset her even more. And I stormed out of her home. And I was going to drive only a couple miles away to my home, but I ended up driving to Ellensburg, Washington, if you can believe it. I was living in Redmond, Washington. I'll let you Google this. Redmond to Ellensburg. And when I got to Ellensburg, Ellensburg has very dark skies, and Jupiter and Saturn were out, and so that was a nice scene to see. I distinctly remember the Milky Way and Jupiter on one side, Saturn on the other. You can Google this, what the skies look like in March of 2016, so that you'll know I'm not lying to you about this. And then I did some Googling about when Jupiter and Saturn would actually come together, and I discovered it would be in 2020. And it was that night that I had made the resolution that I was going to break up with her and meet somebody who wouldn't play games with me to propose to her in December of 2020. And so I did kind of have a proposal and marriage in late 2020. Not the kind that I was thinking of, though. But I, those times were much easier. I had a good relationship with myself, and I didn't run into all the dramas and chaos that I do nowadays, right? I talked about how last summer I got long COVID alone. It helps that Seattle has much milder climate, right? I did get a cold or flu a couple of times and COVID-19 once when I was in Seattle, but the climate is a lot milder. Things don't tend to come at you nearly so fast in Seattle as well. Right here in Phoenix, we have more diversity, and sometimes it causes some clashes, right? I don't mean to say that in a bad way, but disagreements, right? And so things come really fast, right? And over in Seattle, it was more the area of Seattle I lived with was concentrated with Asians, so there was a little bit less conflict. Not that it's a bad thing, but it was a lot less drama, if you will. But I want to be doing something like that more. But unfortunately, here in Phoenix, the weather and the social atmosphere don't really allow for things to go at that kind of pace, right? That's something I'll have to think about the next time I take a different job or a different city. Now, last year, my ex girlfriend got married. The girl that I drove to Ellensburg to get away from, she got married. And what was really upsetting was the first that I heard of her marriage was when I turned on my Facebook and discovered she had used a different last name. I almost forgot about her, except she has a very distinct first name. So the name really stuck out on my Facebook feed. And that was the first time I saw she had gotten married. Now, funny thing is that a year before she got married, I had a dream one night. In the dream, I was still fuming about, well, I'm not fuming in real life, but in the dream, I was fuming about the time she accused me of cheating. In my dream, she had gotten married, and as a wedding gift to her, I had given her this radioactive crystal as a piece of art for her to hang on her wall, and the radioactive crystal was slowly killing her and her husband, and they had no idea why their hair was falling out, their skin was burning, and it was just slowly killing them. And that was a year before her wedding. Funny thing is, just the week after she got married, I was pouring a different radioactive crystal, a few quintillion times weaker than the one in my dream, and I poured a crystal that looked exactly like the one that was in the dream. So I gave it to her as a wedding gift, and so I often dream things that later come true. This is kind of funny. And unfortunately, how times have changed in 9 years. Or 9 years ago, I ran away from her in a relationship with her, and I had a really good time. I would have a good time today, except for the fact that so much is stacked against me these days, like how I was dealing with long COVID last summer alone, and the recent dramas with not having a second set of hands, and let's face it, there's been I've succumbed to lifestyle creep as well, and not having that second income kind of burns a lot more today than it did a decade ago for me, right? I'm guilty of that too.